That is not a good pairing, Shannon. Not at all. All right, looks like we got enough people on. We can get started. We have a really fun guest tonight. We'll talk about her in a minute. But as you know, the drill, and I listen to these again later, I say the same things all the time. We do fifth in line. I don't know what I say. I'll probably say it by mistake, but fifth in line stuff. We're going with that tonight. We found a person to do our tasting with Randall Graham from Bonnie Doon Vineyards next Friday. We're going to do one of his Blanc, which is a rosé, and then we're going to do a it's a Grenache Cinsault and Syrah. Yeah, that's right. Blend out of California as well. And our friend Sydney George has agreed to cook one of her recipes out of her book and go along with us and teach us how to do it. It is a shrimp, pepper, andouille skewer with a spicy rice underneath. So that'll be kind of fun. And she'll do a little demonstration for us. And we're going to do some packages. So you can either just buy the wine and watch. I mean, you have to buy the wine and watch. That's not an option. But there's other things beyond that. You can also buy one of her cookbooks along with it. It's $22 for the cookbook. And then you can also, we'll do a pre-packaged for you, almost like a HelloFresh. I'll probably get sued for even saying that. But we're going to do a package for you where we will provide all the ingredients and the instructions on how to make that dish for next Friday. So I think that'll be really fun. I don't know if you guys know Sydney, but she used to write an article for the Tribune, I think weekly, kind of talking about, she's a very wonderful cook and great foodie. And I think she will, and she's very entertaining. She laughs a lot, which I like. So I think it'll be fun. So that's next Friday night. I don't know. I'll give you the details when we get them all as far as cost and time, because we kind of want to have you guys be prepping and getting everything ready while you're drinking the rosé, and then we'll have Sid go through her spiel with us a bit, and then we will bring Randall on. And for you guys that don't know Randall Graham, he's let's just go with he's a character. Chelsea probably knows him, but he's got an opinion on everything, and he's funny and happy, and I can't wait to have him on next Friday night. So it's pretty fun to have kind of a celebrity like we, I don't know. He's a wine world celebrity. He's not a real celebrity. Let me see what else we got. Oh, we got our friend, I mentioned him already, Bob and Beth Sublik. He's the one that came up with the braised beef ciabatta, and they had it today. I haven't heard if he liked it or not. If we did his recipe, okay, but all right, he's giving the thumbs up. So, so that was really fun. We got a customer client involved in helping us come up with a special. This next week, we've got our main night cook back, Julie Curtis, that we love, who does a wonderful job, and she is going to come up with something from the Mexican side of the world, because it's apparently Cinco de Mayo, which I don't know if Scott Blumfield's on here or not, but that means the 5th of May. So you don't have to ask when Cinco de Mayo is. It's always on the 5th of May. So we'll let you know what that special is tomorrow night. We also worked all day today, Julie and I and Tara and Wayne, our other cook, and came up with some fun things. We're gonna do some flatbreads to go next week. So we will provide all the ingredients. They'll be par baked, and we'll provide you with the actual, well, I don't know what we're gonna do for sure on that, but some kind of bread underneath, and then we'll just give you instructions on how to do it and bake it. And so that'll be fun. And we're gonna do some pastas that we're still working on. So I guess I really don't have that much information today. I'm just saying we'll do something later. So sorry about that. My brother Eric came in today, which is great. I love my brother, and he started this company right here called Adventures Luxury Travel. Tara just put it up. So he's partnering with somebody, I think he's out of California, right, Tara? Wasn't it? Right, where there's a travel agency, which I think, to me was like weird. because I don't think we all use travel agencies much. But then we got to talking about last night when we had Javier on, and I got that right again, Javier. We had him on from Spain, and I bet we got 5 or 6 or 7 said, put a trip together, Mark. And so my brother is just starting with this company, and so we're going to put trips together. So we'll let you know where we're going. Maybe we'll go see Chelsea and the Napa crew, or we'll go to Willamette Valley or something. Yeah. So it'll be fun. So that we're actually going to get that done. That was always the hassle. We've always wanted to do this, but I don't want to line up 20 motel rooms and 20 or 40 airplane trips and whatever. So finding somebody to do that for us, and we'll let you know. Again, I don't have much information. I got to quit this. I need more information. Let me see what else. Oh, we had our friend Jean drop this off today. If you guys can see this or not. Those are liver pills. She thought I might need liver pills after 6 weeks of wine tasting every day. So that made me laugh. And she works at Healthy Horizon, I think. Yep, Healthy Horizons down on Machinery Row. So in case any of you have drank too much recently, I have no idea if they work or not, but what the hell, we might as well give it a try, right? All right, maybe that's it. Anything else, Tara, that you can think of? All right. Well, tonight we have a pleasure of welcoming Chelsea Barrett onto our little Zoom cast. I've only talked to her once before, but she's bubbly and fun, and seems like we might have a good time tonight. And I think we're going to talk a lot about Materra, where she works, and her wines, and her story. But I asked her if this is okay, because she comes from a pretty famous winemaking family in Napa Valley, and in fact, I get all kinds of things tonight. Look at that. I got all kinds of little show and tells. This is her mom's winery, La Serena, and that says, "Happy 50th birthday, Mark," from Heidi Barrett. And so we're saving that until I'm 60, which is next year. So I don't know where we're going to drink or what we're going to do with it, but anyway. So Chelsea, if you kind of want to just start there, just kind of talk about the history of your family and go on.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. All right. So a little bit about my background. Obviously, I'm born and raised in Calistoga, so north end of the Napa Valley. Both my parents are winemakers. So my dad, Bo Barrett of Chateau Montelena. So, his family bought the winery when he was 19 years old, and he's worked there ever since, and he's now 65. So about 45 years there. And then my mom, Heidi, has worked for, lots of different wineries of small brands, mostly some really, really high-end ones. And so that was always what I knew growing up. On the weekends, especially during harvest, you go to work with your parents. So that I, would just go to my mom, to Grace Family, Dalla Valley, Screaming Eagle. That was just normal Saturdays and Sundays during the fall every year. So, it definitely fell to me very, very naturally, and I've always loved to make things. I've always been very, crafty, and loved to knit and bake, and anything that's making something out of nothing was very, very appealing to me. So winemaking came to me, I would say, as a good natural fit. But then for developing my career, then I went to UC Davis and then worked a couple of internships abroad. I worked in Austria at a winery called Meyer im Pfarrplatz. I worked in Australia for Two Hands, and then I worked for Opus One in Oakville. And then I started at Joel Got Wines, and then over 7 years I worked there, worked up from enologist to winemaker. And so if we're talking about Sauvignon Blanc tonight, I have absolutely made a staggering amount of Sauvignon Blanc over the years with Joel Got. So it's really a territory that I feel like I know really well, and I'm still excited by, and I think it's such a fun wine, and I love the different regions that make it, and how nuanced and expressive it can be.
Yeah,
so,
we kind of talked about that earlier. Like, if you want to, well, we'll talk about that in a minute if you don't mind, about Loire and New Zealand and all that. But kind of tell us your story of how you ended up. I know you traveled, and Joel Got that must be a big learning experience. And then, and then ending up at Materra. How maybe the story of kind of that experience from going that monster winery to, the smaller winery like you were in now.
Yeah. So a little bit about Materra's background as well, of that they started the property, it's in Oak Knoll. So it's the north end of Napa. So still south of Yountville. And so they planted the property in 2007 and 2008, and then built the winery over the next couple of years. So the winery itself was finished in 2015. But then I joined the company last year. So 2019 was my first harvest with Materra. But yeah, it was definitely after, a longer time with, super, super huge production and, really, really nonstop. It's more at a certain point, when you work for a company that's that large, it's a little bit like making beer, where it's just go, go, go all the time. There's never any downtime. You're always bottling. You're always, ramping up to make more wine again. So it was just, I have a really young family. It was time to make a change, that I needed something that was, a little bit more of a better work-life balance at a certain point. And then Materra came up, at exactly the right time for something that I'm really, really excited about, of just a killer property to make some cool wines.
I imagine you had plenty of options with your background and everything. So maybe you could tell us what Materra, why you chose Materra, and maybe what Materra means too.
Oh, sure. Materra is, sort of Latin-ish for Mother Earth. So it's very, very, eco-friendly. It's all Napa green certified. And, just a really cool property that has, owl boxes. So they're very, very focused on being eco-friendly as well from that attitude. The other part of the name, like the full company name, is Materra Cunat Family Vineyards. So the Cunat family, Brian and Mickey, are the owners, and then their daughters, Nina and Amy, are also very involved. Hi, Rosie, can you back in the house, please? Sorry. Sorry, I got my my daughter. This is Rosie.
You don't have to apologize for that. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's my little buddy. But yeah, so that's where we got to for, derailed slightly on that one. Help me out here, Mark. Where was I?
Choosing Materra. I mean, I know there had to be lots of opportunities. So you must have seen something in that property or in the ownership group or in whatever that made you really excited about going to work there.
What excites me about Materra is very much the potential of that. It's an amazing facility. It's a just brand new state-of-the-art winery. It's so well set up for everything. Just, you couldn't ask for a nicer facility to work with. And the facility and the vineyards are awesome. It's what's exciting about it for me is this is probably a good time to pull up that map. Are you able to?
Yep, Tara's on it.
Okay. So yeah, what I can tell you about for the map is that I think it's exciting. Like often when you think of Napa, it's really just cab. And where we are in the valley is a little bit cooler. And so it really, really is an exceptional area for showcasing some other varietals that I think we don't talk about quite as much as we should for Napa, particularly Merlot. So if you're looking at this, yeah, the big building on the, lower left is the winery. And then it's really, color coordinated. All the red, ME is Merlot, obviously. MA is Malbec. V1 and V2, that's our Viognier. And then all the green, the lighter green is Chardonnay. We've got a little bit of Syrah that was planted kind of for fun on the left south. And then up at that top right corner, in the far back of the property, is all of our Sauvignon Blanc. So I also make a Merlot blend with my mom called the Muse Bouche that she's been making since I think like 2000 or 2001. And then I joined her making that as co-winemaker with her in 2017. So I love Merlot, and I realize we're not talking about that as much tonight, but that was
No. Did we lose you, Chelsea?
Can you hear me?
Are you back, Chelsea? Yep, we're back now. We lost you.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know how much was lost, but yeah, what excited me the most about Materra is having really, really good varietals planted that I like working with a lot. A great facility, great team, and just a lot of upward mobility. I think we have so much room to grow, and building something and growing something, I think is the most fun aspect of any business.
So I think do you still work with, is it Michael Trujillo?
Yes, I do. Yeah, he's our consulting winemaker. And
Tell his
So
story a
he
little bit, will you?
makes, yeah, he
He
makes
seems
his
like, I met
own.
him. He seems like a really cool guy. So tell him a
Great
little about
guy. He's, yeah, just such a pro, and he makes his own wines at the facility still too for the like Trujillo label. So yeah, so he comes and goes. He knows the property really well and the family really well. So he's been a great resource for while I'm new to the company.
I heard, I mean, I read that you have a vineyard manager, I think, or anyway. So are you involved a lot in the vineyard still? Do you kind of talk about when you're going to harvest and
Oh
what?
yeah. Especially like when we're gonna harvest. That's very, very much me, calling all the shots there. But we just switched to a new vineyard management company this year, Doug Hill, that is really well known Oak Knoll farmer. So I'm just so excited to work with them. So yes, they know a lot of the things that need to happen when, like right now, they're suckering. But then in terms of where I really start to get involved is where we're a little bit closer to veraison, and how much crop is on there. Of like, do I really think it's going to ripen at the appropriate amount? Do we need to thin a little bit more so we can get more concentration in the fruit? And then yes, and then I'm definitely calling all the shots for when we're going to pick, what flavors that I'm looking for, how ripe, how that's all going to work out.
So maybe you could explain a few of those terms like Verizon, maybe what you're looking for. If you
Oh,
actually go out and taste the grape and you try to decide like physically with your tongue, or do you use measurements on a meter?
some
Or
of
how does that all work?
Some of both. Okay, I also just saw a question come up of, can you explain suckering? So suckering is what's happening right now. And it's when the plant first, after being dormant over the winter, starts to put out new growth, lots of new fluffy, green shoots with new little leaves and new tiny little grape clusters. But the vine puts them out largely indiscriminately. They're all over the vine, all the way down to the trunk. And so we just rip all that stuff off, and so that the vine will really put its energy into growing the shoots that are going to have really, really quality grapes on them. Okay, and then veraison. At that point, for Mark, you wanted to me explain veraison as well?
Yeah, please. And then your level of what you do to decide when the harvest happens.
Okay, so veraison is where berries really soften and start to accumulate sugar. So for white wines, they still don't really have a huge change in color because they're going to stay as white or yellowish skins. But they do become a lot softer berries and very translucent. For reds, that's when they start to pick up color. And so ripening really, really happens quickly at that point. The average is for reds is about 10 weeks. From once you hit veraison, you're about 10 weeks to likely when you're going to pick. But then for figuring it, the grapes are still incredibly sour at that point. And so you don't really start tasting until, at least a month later, usually. And then you're really just tasting for flavors. So for whites, ripen quite a bit earlier. Our Sauvignon Blanc was picked right at the beginning of September in a few different picks. And then other things, the Chardonnay is a little bit later. There's sometimes some overlap between blocks, and then the reds start to come later through end of September through the end of October.
Nice. And then kind of the story of when you decide. And it's interesting because I know some winemakers don't necessarily trust their palate, and apparently you do, as far as.
Oh, it's some of both. I mean, you definitely go off of some lab analysis. So we're always tracking for as things ripen, because you want to know how quickly things are ripening, and also it's just nice to have that data year over year for vintage variation of what you're seeing in trends. We do like to collect a lot of data, I think. But yeah, so you're usually tracking bricks. So you're looking at the sugar level for something that's going to be optimal, and then looking at the pH and then the titratable acidity. So those are the three that are really just the basics of how ripe something is. There's a lot more that I won't get into for how complex it can be. There's more we look at, but that's the basic version for what we're looking at for ripeness in the chemistry. But that really doesn't touch on the flavors that you're looking at. Something might have ideal numbers, but it just doesn't taste right. So that's something that you feel out. And even, it's just how ripe of a style of Sauvignon Blanc that you want per se. you're not necessarily going to be told by numbers of like when you should pick. You're really tasting for the right flavors that you want.
So that leads us into the different styles of Sauvignon Blanc from around the world.
Yeah.
Is so amazing to me. Like New Zealand is so different from Loire. And I think you guys are more similar to Loire, but obviously California has its own style too. So can maybe talk about the styles of those and why that happens?
Yeah. So a lot of it just has to do with the, the terroir of what the compounds that you're going to get accumulating in the grapes for its farming. So the New Zealand style can be definitely very, very expressive, but more in the tropical. Like when I think of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, it should be very, very passion fruity and really boxwood. So like past grassy, like boxwood is the polite version, like cat pee is the impolite version for how that compound really comes across. So it's almost like an aggressively green, really, really pungent character. And it can be good, and some people don't care for it. But what I think really is definitive is that passion fruit character. For more Loire and more of the other styles, you can really, then I think the nuance becomes how ripe it's going to be. So there's a whole spectrum of being more lemony, grassy, all the way up to like more baked, like baked pear and stone fruit. And then you can really play around with like the oak profile as well. So you can get to something that's really, really lean and mineral, all the way up to something like Sauterne that's really nectarine and more texture from oak involved. So
do you know much about, I'm sorry, do you know much about Fumé Blanc and kind of that story?
Not as much. I can't, I'm definitely not an expert on that, but I would say there's more neutral oak used in that style. So sometimes Sauvignon Blanc that really has a lot of acid. In some styles and some winemakers like to use a little bit more neutral barrel to help soften it up a bit, so it's not just so like peel the enamel from your teeth, bracing acidity.
The story I've heard, and you guys can Google it later, but Robert Mondavi was having a hard time selling his Sauvignon Blanc out of California, and he went to Puy Fumé, and that's a Sauvignon Blanc, and he just stole their name and called it Fumé Blanc, and then it started flying off the shelf because I guess, I don't know why, but Google it later. I'm pretty sure that's right. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard something similar on that. To me, Fumé Blanc would be, I think it almost becomes like a marketing distinction that like this is going to be an oaky Sauvignon Blanc. Like this is not your light crisp situation.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
And then tell about California Sauv Blancs before we get on to Materra's Sauv Blancs. In general, are they more Loire style, do you think? Like more subdued and not so grassy and...
Yeah, definitely. I would say they're going to be more Loire style based on just our growing conditions here and what aromas just happen to pop up. So it's more Sauvignon Blanc is and many whites are wines that a lot of the aromatic character is very much made by the yeast. The predominant, the molecules that are responsible for the smell in Sauvignon Blanc are called thiols. And it's a type of alcohol, so it's really volatile. Like when you smell what's, pretty and nice about a Sauvignon Blanc is like, that's the thiols that are actually coming out of the glass and into your nose. And so there's many, many types of those, but thiols are not naturally occurring in grapes. They're actually made as a byproduct of fermentation by the yeast. So that's where you can really have a lot of fun as a winemaker with playing around with what type of yeast you use and the temperature. There's endless variables for how can you really try to harness the ideal expression of Sauvignon Blanc.
Nice. I have a really loud truck coming by right now. Hold on. A guy drives by a lot. I'm going to offer to buy him a muffler. So let's talk about this wine, the Materra Sauv Blanc. I don't have a bottle in front of me. It's inside. What's the vintage? Anybody in the word taste?
I think you have the 18.
18. So tell us a little bit about well, I guess you weren't there yet. But
yeah, so I didn't make the 18. My first Materra whites are the 2019 vintage, but I'm still working with the exact same fruit. Oh, somebody's popping up. It's the 17. Is that true? What you all are drinking is the 17, SB?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Well, in any case, same vineyard. But now it'll probably just have a little bit more aged character, but it ages pretty slowly because of how high acid it is. It's a really nice low pH wine, and that it's packed in a screw cap, so you really don't get any oxidation. So it does preserve pretty well, making it in this style. But yeah, so we're on the map where the Sauvignon Blanc is. There's 3 blocks that are closer to the river, so it's a little bit of a heavier soil on that end. And so the vines are actually grown what's called the quad cane. So rather than having, I wish I wasn't holding this with my phone. It's one cane in each direction is the main canopy for growing the Sauv Blanc. So it's 4 different like flat cordons that are growing the Sauvignon Blanc. And then because to try to pull some of the vigor, Sauvignon Blanc really is a high vigor vine, and so you really have to farm it in a way that you can reel it in a little bit. But what's cool also about our Sauvignon Blanc is we have a really like specialty clone called Sauvignon Muscat that falls more into the Muscat family. It tastes awesome when you pick it a little bit riper, and it's definitely more peachy, and it has more of those really ripe tropical fruit and more stone fruit character. And so that I think is something that is always going to be a really strong characteristic of Materra Sauvignon Blanc is a good chunk of the Muscat clone thrown in, that I think adds a lot of complexity, and I like it because you get so many more little nuances of fruit character there. Nice. And I think it's a good balance with when you have that Muscat and you get that more peachy character, then it balances against the more limey and more grassy of a regular clone.
This is a fun wine because I think it even has a little dryness to it too. It's not at all sweet, and I think it. We recommended a goat cheese called Drunken Goat to go with this tonight to the people, and I think that's the classic pairing from the Loire. The Loire Valley is basically the home of Sauvignon Blanc, and that's also the home of French goat cheese. So when I was at the California Institute of what's it called, CIA there in St. Helena. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they taught us that when we were there. We did 2 days of wine and food pairing, and like just stick with what has been going on for centuries in these places. And Chianti should probably go with the food from Chianti, and Loire Valley wine should probably go with that. So anyway, are you a foodie? Do you cook?
Yeah, I definitely like to cook a lot, but I play it pretty fast and loose with my food pairings. It's sort of both of whatever I feel like, drinking and whatever I feel like cooking. But I would say for Sauvignon Blanc, like I really like something with something like fish tacos or shrimp tacos, something that has a little bit of like a fruitier element, like a salsa with something like a seafood, I think is a really nice pairing. That would definitely be my go-to.
I would like to talk about the point system. Somebody mentioned 92 points, wine enthusiast of the 17 that we're drinking. I know in the wine industry, we always, inside of our own circles, we always talk about, well, you hate points, but then something comes out, it's 96 points, all of a sudden I can sell a bunch of it. So I just do it, whore out and do it. But what's your feeling on the point system?
It's not for me. I don't really care about points unless they're good, and then I don't really get any personal validation out of it. It's just that it's like, oh, good, people will pay attention and maybe we'll sell some. That's really it. I think points is, it's like comparing any art form of, could you really put just a number on a painting, on a song, on a film, on a book? Like it's impossible. There's just too much variation, and I think it sells it short as a medium. So I am not a points fan, but I do really, really understand and respect the power that they have over. Are people going to pay attention to your brand or not?
I agree. I can't stand them either, but I use them. So whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us about the other red wines that you guys make? You guys are more red wine heavy with the Merlot. We're having about to talk about your Merlot. That'd be fun. If you're excited, and tell us anything else you want about red wine.
Sure. I mean, again, since I'm new to Materra, I have a bunch of really, cool stuff in the pipeline of all the wines of all the 2018 reds that I'm finishing up right now, and then all of the 19s that are just getting bottled. So, I mean, I definitely could evangelize the hell out of those. I'm just so excited about what's up and coming. But yeah, I'm a big Merlot drinker. That's some of my favorite wines in the world are Merlot. I think it's just such an, like, that's the epitome of food pairing wine, because cabs can be a little bit heavy, and people always think about, cab and steak, and who can really eat that much steak? Not me. So I like Merlot because it's so much more versatile, of like really any Italian foods, of any, tomato sauce pastas, even with some seafood. So I'm gonna, really, really, I think Merlot will have a big comeback, and Materra is a great spot for Merlot. So that's something that I'm happy to cheerlead for. So our Merlot is called Right Bank. That is a nod to Bordeaux's Right Bank, for those, Pomerol and Saint Emilion style blends. So I think it's a really nice pairing of having, a little bit of Cab Franc blended into your Merlot. I think they just make such a team for a really, really balanced, mid-weight red wine. So the fruit character is really exciting and has a lot of nuance. Let's see. So we do have a couple of cabs as well. We have Hidden Block is our, sort of our Napa cab. So that's a blend that is Diamond Mountain and Oak Knoll cab, and then some of the fruit from the property too. So some of our Malbec and Merlot, Cab Franc, a few other things, whatever I think is going to taste good. And then we have Diamond Mountain, and then our Vine One is our Oak Knoll cab as well. But then let's see, we started making a new version of rosé this year, out of Malbec, that I'm really excited about. The Viognier that we made for 19 is killer. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm excited about.
So I'm sure you know about the AVAs of Napa and the difference between the mountain sites and the floor sites, and maybe you could kind of explain AVA first, and then kind of what you see as the different styles of fruit that comes off those different AVAs a little bit. I mean, no, we're not here to get too in depth, but I think it's fun. Like, I love Howell Mountain fruit. So
yeah, definitely very intense. So the AVAs are all like, American viticultural areas that are broken up as something that is distinctive in its topography and weather, that they've decided is going to make a unique character of wine for an area. So for our cab lots, we have two different vineyards from, two different AVAs that we're working with. So one is Diamond Mountain. So Diamond Mountain is on the west side of Calistoga, which is where I live. And it is definitely the hotter end of the valley. So you still get a little bit more temperate climate, because it is up in the hills, that it's a little cooler up there. And then also you're getting some coastal influence of coming in from the North Bay. So you get a little bit more moderate than valley floor in Calistoga, which can be pretty hot. And then, so you definitely get just more like just super tiny berries, like our Diamond Mountain fruit. They're just like, some of those berries are smaller than my pinky finger of when you're picking them. You just get like these lacy little clusters of barely any fruit. So you get a lot of intensity with that. The Oak Knoll site, what we have is actually, on an alluvial fan. So for geography nerds out there, or geology nerds, it's still a really, really great type of soil for growing grapes. And it's not a totally flat site. It's still, I guess many would consider it valley floor, but there is a good slope to it. And it is right against the west hill of the valley. I can't speak to exactly why the fruit there is the way it is, but the intensity there is just the most interesting textures. It makes, or I would think, for me, our Diamond Mountain cab is really, really more that just like intense berry nose and concentration. And the Lamoureux is the name of the family that has the vineyard. It just is a very, very textural cab, where it's just so interesting and chewy. And those are the main differences in the styles of those two wines for me.
Your mom, I think, made Lamborn up in
Yes, she still does.
Does she? That was
Yes.
one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely love. It's Brian Lamborn.
Awesome. I drank a bottle of Lamborn cab last night also. Yeah, so that I've got. The Lamborns are like the sweetest people in the world, and so I did a bottling for my mom when she was out of town once, and so Mike Lamborn. He gave me a case of wine as a thank you for helping with the bottling too. So I've been really nursing those out. They're just killer cabs.
He came out and flooded the river. We have a Missouri River runs through here, and we had a lot of fly fishermen come through, and he showed up and fly fished and did a tasting with us. So seemed like a cool guy. So
very nice. Yeah. Oop, sorry, everybody. I dropped my phone. Yeah. So yeah. So yes, the Lamborns, great people.
all right. Well, I think I'm about out of questions. Anybody else got anything out there, or you have anything else you want to talk about, Chelsea?
Brian, no shade. You want to pipe up with anything I'm forgetting?
None of us have much to do,
Brian?
right? I don't, at least.
I think I just unmuted.
Yep, you did.
I'm hiding in the background with terrible lighting.
Yes, I can hear you. What else?
Yes.
What else can I talk about?
Well, I mean, when you talked about the Lamoureux vineyards, to me, that is the history of the whole valley.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the Lamoureux vineyards are what could be considered block one of all of Napa for Cabernet. So we're looking at Captain Osborne's vines going back to 1856. And now the Morgan family are the owners?
Well, it's the Lamoureux family. So it's Phil Lamoureux and his wife is named Morgan Morgan. And so, yeah, that vineyard was is what Brian is saying also. And so it's a cool place with a lot of history. Yeah, so that is what we're changing to. So originally the wine that we bottled for that cab was named 1856, but then this for 2018 we're changing the name of that wine to Vine 1 to reflect that it's the first spot.
Oh, I'm still on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thanks, Chelsea. I just thought that's a story out there, and I dug deep into the internet, and I contacted Morgan Morgan to get all the history I could of this captain in the Merchant Marines that planted vines in 1852, I believe, which his claim to fame is the first European varietal planted in Napa Valley, and we bought a portion of that for you to make cab off of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should hear a little bit more about the family, how this all happened, when they buy the vineyards and the winery and whatever, the current owners.
Oh, the current owners. So Brian and Mickey Kunat are the owners. So they bought the property in 2007.
I think you did say this. I'm sorry, I was wrong. You did say this earlier, right? But just kind of talk about their involvement, maybe in the whole operation.
Oh, sure. So yeah, with all the what's going on now, he hasn't done much lately. So they live in McHenry, Illinois. But otherwise, then most of the time they come and visit once a month or every other month, and they're definitely very very excited about everything that's going on with the winery. Their other business is in construction in Illinois. So they've really got their hands full. And then their daughter, Nina, is married to our GM, Harry Heights. And then their other daughter, Amy, is an artist, and she lives in New York, and she designs all of our labels.
I've heard there's a glass floor you can actually see down into the terroir.
Yeah, so that's in our tasting room. We have the grand tasting room with all the bigger long tables for hosting, and then there's an extra cellar area to show off some of our earlier vintages, and then the glass floor underneath to show off our terroir, or as Brian likes to say, our Materra.
I think our friends Brian and Malia Linseth actually visited here, right? Brian, are you on? I think, and so that's maybe the next question is, tell us about visiting Materra, and if I put together a wine trip, can 20 of us come down and visit you guys and have fun?
So I definitely am not in charge of that. But I know who to pass pass an email to for setting something like that up. So normally
I can jump in.
Oh, Brian, yeah.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So as far as groups of 20, unfortunately, our guest house only has 3 master suites. So if you want to shorten your group and call us about staying with us, that's another conversation. But we can certainly handle a group of 20 on a private tour and tasting. And you being in the industry and being part of this event, that's all going to be complimentary.
See, there's some benefits to being on these things, for Pete's sake.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put this together. It'll be fun. Anything else, Brian or Chelsea?
Well, I don't know if anybody on this Zoom is from the Flathead Lake area, but that's where I'm originally from.
Really?
So,
where from?
From Polson.
Oh, cool.
So
I place in Whitefish.
Okay. Yeah, that's the other end of the lake.
Right.
I've got family in Big Fork. I've been out there many a 4th of July.
Oh, really? Cool. That's fun. So you've been to the parade?
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. Well, anytime you guys want to come up and do a tasting with us here, we do farm to table events, which would be fun. We could pair and have a chef cooking, and we do them outside. So anytime you guys want to come north and either boat or fish or whatever, we got lots of outdoor activities. You sure are welcome. Thank you so much, you guys.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Good night. Cheers.